Welcome back, class. It's Dr. Lindner. We are continuing with our lecture on the introduction to anatomy and physiology. Let's take a look. In a previous video, we had mentioned the organization of life, right? We said that chemicals come together to make cells, cells come together to make tissues, tissues come together to make organs, organs come together to make systems, and then systems come together to make the organism. So let's take a look at some of the systems. Some of the systems we'll talk about in Anatomy and Physiology 1, and other systems we'll talk about in Anatomy and Physiology 2, but at least you'll get comfortable with the names of the systems now and some of the important structures and what their primary functions are. So in Anatomy 1, we will be talking about the skeletal system, and we will be talking about the neural system. And let's take a look at the skeletal system first. Now, the skeletal system is made up of 206 bones in the body. And when I discuss the skeleton, I will break it down into what we have here in the center. And in the center, we call that the axial skeleton. And then we'll focus on the upper extremities and the lower extremities, and we call that the appendicular system. So we have the appendicular skeleton, which is the upper and lower extremities, and we have the axial skeleton, which is everything in the center here, the skull, the spine, the ribs, the pelvis. That's all axial skeleton. Now, the skeleton is really important because muscles are going to attach to them. When muscles attach to bones and muscles contract, they're going to move your bones. The type of muscle that attaches to your skeleton is called skeletal muscle. Remember, I said we have 3 types of muscle. We have skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. Smooth, skeletal, and cardiac. Skeletal muscle attaches to the skeleton. You have conscious control over it, and it moves the body parts. And the skeleton is really important to protect us. We have the skull that protects the brain. We have the spinal column that protects your spinal cord. We have the pelvis here that protects your reproductive organs and some digestive organs. We have the ribs that protects the lungs and the heart. So you could see that it's got major important function to protect us. And it's also a reservoir. What do I mean by a reservoir? It's like a bank. If you have too much money in your pocket, which is a really good problem to have, would you agree? So if you have too much money in your pocket, you may not want to walk around with all that money in your pocket, especially here living in New York, right? We want to put some of that money in the bank. It's dangerous to have too much money in the pocket. So we would take that and put it in the bank. And as you need money, you can always go to the bank and take money out. You can do withdrawal. So you can make deposits and withdrawals. In the skeletal system, it works the same way. You can put nutrients in the bones to store it, like calcium and magnesium and a lot of minerals and iron. They can be stored in the bones. And if you're in a fasting state and haven't eaten in a while, your innate intelligence can pull nutrients out of the bone and bring it back into the blood. So think of it as a bank and a reservoir. The skeletal system is also responsible for making blood. The term for blood production is called hematopoiesis. Hemato, like hema for blood, hematopoiesis. Don't worry about writing and spelling it now, it's okay. Hematopoiesis. In the bone, you can make red blood cells and white blood cells. That can take place in the bone marrow. In fact, that's where B cells come from. When you hear the word B cells and T cells, the B in B cells comes from the B in bone marrow. All right, so that's just a little introductory to the skeleton. Next, we have the neural system. And when I teach the neural system, I will approach it the same way I do the skeletal system. So we'll focus on what we have here in the center first. What we have in the center is called the central neural system, and then we'll focus on all the nerves that are in the periphery, and that would be called the peripheral neural system. So there's the central neural system and the peripheral neural system. The neural system, I know it says nervous, I just don't like to use the word nervous. I don't like to be nervous, and I believe there's a lot of power to the words that we use. So I refer to it as the neural system. Within the neural system, this is the very, very first system that develops embryologically. Wow, isn't that amazing? Because most people think the circulatory system with the heart is the first system that develops, because when people do an ultrasound or Doppler ultrasound on a pregnant woman, they'll say, oh, there's the heartbeat, baby's alive, there's the heartbeat. But before the heart, it's the neural system, it's the brain and the spinal cord, and that forms somewhere around the 18th day, somewhere around day 18 after sperm and egg come together, that the neural system is developed. It's called the master system because it controls all the other systems of the human body. So the neural system is called a master system. So the CNS is the brain and the spinal cord. What is the CNS, the central neural system? It's only the brain and the spinal cord. Anything else is the peripheral neural system. So if we talk about nerves that come off of the brain, those are called cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are part of the peripheral neural system. Spinal nerves, nerves that come off the spine, those are also part of the peripheral neural system. The central neural system is only brain tissue and spinal cord. Anything peripheral to that is part of the peripheral neural system. The neural system is the control center of the human body. It's the processor, especially the CNS. Okay, respiratory system. Typically, we will divide the respiratory tract into an upper respiratory tract and a lower respiratory tract. Have you heard of an upper respiratory tract infection or a lower respiratory tract infection? So right here, that's the delineating mark right there at that larynx. We have an upper respiratory and lower respiratory tract. The main purpose of this is to pull in oxygen into the lungs and to push out carbon dioxide. The oxygen that we breathe in, we're going to find a way to bring that oxygen to each and every cell. And in the cell, there's an organelle. That organelle is called a mitochondria. And mitochondria is typically referred to as the powerhouse of the cell because it produces ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. This is the energy currency of the human body. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is the energy currency of the body. And the mitochondria makes ATP, but in order to make it, it needs oxygen. Not only oxygen, but it needs glucose or sugar in order to do that. So we breathe in oxygen. The mitochondria is going to utilize the oxygen and give off carbon dioxide, which is the CO2 that we exhale. Pretty cool how that happens, right? Now, the oxygen that we take in, the circulatory system is going to find a way to pump that oxygen to all other tissues of the body. And after it pumps the oxygen to all the tissues, now the tissues have become deoxygenated, meaning there's no more oxygen. So it's going to pump that deoxygenated blood to the lungs. The lungs are going to pick up the oxygen, bring it back to the red blood cells, and the heart will then repump that oxygenated blood to all the parts of the body. When we go through the circulatory system, we'll go over in detail how the heart pumps, the difference between the right side and left side of the heart, the difference between oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood, and how the heart and the lungs are working together in terms of oxygenating the cells and tissues of the body. We'll go over the arteries, we'll go over the veins, but the circulatory system is very important. We'll go over all the names of the blood vessels, arteries, veins, and the heart itself. circulatory system is not just pumping gases, but it has an important job to pump blood to the liver so that the liver can filter that blood, clean it out. And after it's clean, it's going to send the byproducts to the kidneys over here in the urinary tract to push out the debris. So the liver and the kidneys are involved in cleansing and detoxifying the human body. So the urinary system is made up of 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, 1 urethra, and a urinary bladder. 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, a urinary bladder, and a urethra. We'll go over in detail the functions of the kidney. We'll go over in detail its structures and function, but the urinary system is primarily involved in regulating pH of the body, getting rid of toxins in the body, and regulating blood pressure. Believe it or not, the heart is involved in controlling blood pressure. Okay, it produces hormones that help influence blood pressure. The digestive system. The primary reason for digestion is to produce energy, ATP, and to build tissues and cells of the human body. So we're going to take in carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. The teeth are going to break those things down, and we're going to chew those things and send it down the esophagus and into the stomach, where we have strong digestive enzymes to break down carbohydrates to get glucose, to break down proteins to get amino acids, to break down fats to get triglycerides. When we break those things down, the mitochondria can use that to make ATP, energy. And we have these, the main digestive organs, and then we have accessory organs. So like the teeth are an accessory organ, your salivary glands are an accessory organ, the liver is an accessory organ, the gallbladder is an accessory organ, the pancreas. Like the main ones are going to be the esophagus, the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. But there's a lot of accessory organs that help the main ones do their job. Integumentary we'll cover in A&P 1. Integumentary is the skin, hair, and nails. Everything on the outside. The purpose of the skin, the hair, and the nails is to help protect so that things don't invade the body. We have skin so that things don't invade the mucous membranes and serous membranes of what's deep to the skin. We want to protect our body from bacteria and viruses, and the skin has lots of important bacteria on it, good bacteria that help us keep the bad bacteria off, which is why using antibacterial soaps and antibacterial alcohol swabs and all this stuff on our hands is so destructive to the good bacteria on them. So you want to be very, very careful using antibacterial wipes, antibacterial sponges. They've done studies on this 20, 30 years ago that if you do a swab on, let's say, your kitchen plates and your kitchen dishes and cups from using antibacterial sponges and soaps, the bacteria count increases. Why? Because that which fails to kill me makes me stronger. Okay, so remember that, whether that applies to antibacterial topical stuff or even antibiotics. You have to be very careful with the usage of these things, not to misuse them or overuse them. Endocrine system. We have endocrine organs that produce hormones, and hormones are going to move through the circulatory system to go to their target cells to help influence function of the human body. So in the brain, we have the pituitary gland, we have the pineal gland, in the throat, we have the thyroid gland, in the chest, the thymus gland, We have the pancreas, we have the kidneys, testes or ovaries in females. All of these organs have secreting cells that will produce or secrete and release a chemical messenger known as a hormone. So your pituitary gland can send a chemical messenger to your thyroid gland, and then your thyroid gland can produce a hormone that goes to your muscles and to your tissues. Your pancreas can produce a hormone that can affect blood sugar. Your kidneys can produce a hormone that can affect your heart function. The testes can produce hormone that affects bone growth and muscle growth. Okay, so that's the endocrine system. The muscular system in this picture, again, when I teach muscles, we'll talk about them as axial muscles and then appendicular, the appendages, appendicular. But these are skeletal muscles that attaches to the skeleton. You have conscious voluntary control over moving them. When muscles contract, they generate heat. That's why when you exercise, you sweat, because the sweat is trying to cool off the heat generated by the contracting muscles. Think of what happens when you have a fever. Your body starts to shiver. Your jaw may quickly contract. Your chest muscles and your neck and everything can contract rapidly. And when the muscles contract, they generate heat so that you can increase your body temperature. Okay? If you're outside and it's snowing and it's cold in the Northeast, like here in New York, and you're out there wearing shorts like me, okay, you can get cold, so your muscles will shiver to generate heat. The lymphatic system, this is like a parallel circulatory system. And what it's doing is it's cleansing out not just blood, but also interstitial fluid, which is the fluid between the cells, to clean them and purify them. Besides all of these lymphatic vessels, we have lymphatic nodules and lymphatic glands like the thymus and the spleen and the bone marrow. You have lymph nodes. These are all part of the lymphatic system. You have the adenoids. You have lymph nodes in the chest, in the armpit, in the neck, in front of the ear, behind the ear. And whenever they get swollen, we'll say, oh, you must be fighting an infection, or your immune system is being challenged. That's part of the lymphatic system. So here is an old Connect or McGraw-Hill Connect quiz question, and it's asking what is the highlighted structure. So we know we're looking at the skeleton. So let's just look at the choices. We never learned about a central skeleton. We never learned about a peripheral skeleton. The only time you heard central and peripheral was when we talked about the central neural system or peripheral neural system. So now we're left with appendicular skeleton or axial. Well, the appendages are the lower extremities and the upper extremities. So what we're left with in blue is the axial skeleton. Okay, now we're looking at muscles. Well, by process of elimination, rectus muscles, well, these are the rectus abdominis muscles. Well, that's not blue. Axial muscles, axial is everything here in the where the axial skeleton is in the center. So now we're down to oblique or appendicular. Oblique muscles, those are these in the abdominal region. So we can cross that out. So again, process of elimination, you're left with appendicular muscles. So during the week, when I send out through the announcements different pictures that have shown up on past exams, don't just look at the answers, look at the distractors, because those have shown up on quizzes as well. Okay, well, we're looking at the CNS, right? That's the central neural system. Everything else that's not highlighted is the peripheral neural system. However, we don't see those as choices. We're looking at functions. So removing wastes, nope, that's the urinary system. Connecting to muscles, well, that's going to be the osteology, anything with bones. Destroying foreign invaders, that's going to be the lymphatic system. So the control center, the CPU, is the CNS, the central neural system. This is the master system of the body, the control center. Okay, in this picture, it's showing the thyroid, and behind the thyroid, we see the parathyroid glands. We're looking at the thymus. Here are the kidneys, and above them, the adrenals. So we know that we're looking at the endocrine system, but what is the gland? So it's not the adrenal gland. It's not the liver. The liver would be here. It's not in the picture, but the liver would be over here. And it's not the kidneys. Kidneys are here and here. So the blue is going to be the pancreas. The pancreas makes insulin, and it makes a lot of digestive enzymes to break down proteins, carbs, and fats. Okay, what is this highlighted bright blue structure here? Well, that's going to be the heart, right? Some of them are give me's, pretty straightforward. If it's the aorta, well, that's this blood vessel right there. That's the arch of the aorta. Okay. All right. Here, remember we drew this line earlier? We said this is the lower respiratory tract. So this blue highlighted region has to be the upper respiratory tract. Okay, now we're looking at the digestive system. And the way I describe this, let's say we have, here's the mouth, here's the esophagus, then we have the stomach, then we have the small intestine, and then we have the large intestine. Okay, so I refer to it as what's blue is the small intestine. That's the picture, and then the picture is in the frame. The picture is the small intestine, the frame going around it. So this is the small intestine, and the frame going around it is the large intestine. So that, and that, and that's all large intestine. Small intestine is the picture. The picture is enclosed by the picture frame. The frame is the large intestine. Okay? So now we know that this is the small intestine. That's the picture. What's the picture frame? The picture frame is the large intestine. Right here is the liver. And then faintly here, there's a little green structure, very faint. That green structure, the green is the gallbladder. That's the gallbladder. Gallbladder and liver are adjacent to each other. Okay, so now here's the liver, the gallbladder, the tongue, the salivary glands. So all of those things combined, they're part of the digestive organs, but they're not the main ones. They're accessory digestive organs. Okay, the liver is here. That's the liver. The digestive tract, well, that's esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. Salivary glands are here. That's your parotid gland. Under the tongue is the sublingual gland. And under the mandible, the submandibular gland. This is the tongue. Okay, so everything in blue, these are called accessory digestive organs. Good place to take our next break. When we come back, we'll talk about anatomical position and some of the important anatomical reference terms.